What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to more Marvel Snap, and today we've got a new featured location. It is Morag, with an interesting new effect. You can't play your first card here each turn, and that is an effect that translates throughout the game, meaning every single turn you cannot play your first card there. So if you're kind of curving out and playing one card per turn, you can just never play a card on Morag. So it's got some pretty interesting downfalls and things to play around. So I want to talk about some cards or ways you can play around Morag. Your biggest ways are to play some cheap stuff. So the more, ones and twos you're playing, where you can play multiple cards per turn, turn 4, play a 1 and then play a 3, things like that. It's going to help out. Obviously, if you play either of the 0 costs, that's going to help out as well. So you're looking for decks that kind of either are combo-y and playing multiple cards per turn, or are just low cost, kind of almost like zoo decks. Doesn't necessarily have to be zoo, just has to have almost like a curve of a zoo deck, more or less, if that makes sense. Other things you can do are summon cards. So your Squirrel Girl, your White Tiger, your Doctor Doom, things like that summon cards in other locations will be very nice to just kind of bang, I don't need to play into Morag because I'm playing cards over there anyway. Another thing to keep in mind, if you're playing something like a Silver Surfer deck, if you have a 1 cost to kind of trigger it, you can kind of play a 1 cost and then just play your Brood onto Morag, and that's kind of all you really need for a game. I don't think a lot of opponents are going to be fighting onto Morag very often. A lot of decks aren't really going to be able to consistently play 1 card at another location and then play onto Morag. So if you're playing a Surfer deck, Brood might just be enough for you to win that location. You could also do things like Mr. Fantastic or Claw to completely avoid the location, but still pump some power onto it. But that's going to be kind of a your mileage may vary kind of thing on a game-by-game basis, and what your opponent's playing, whether or not you can, whether that's enough, I should say. Not pull it off, but whether or not that's enough. So I think the best things you can do right now are, if you're the type of deck that's cheating out an early Doctor Doom and maybe triggering it multiple times, that's a pretty good way to fight for Morag. If you're just playing kind of a general long Odin deck with White Tiger, I think that will do just fine for you. Otherwise, I think one of the better things you could do is kind of like a Beast Falcon deck with all those 1-drops. That way you have a lot of 1-drops to play, so you can very easily, spread them all around the board. Playing onto Morag should not be a deterrent at all. Probably would be an advantage in that scenario for you as well. And then you can play Beast and Falcon to kind of get 0 cost guys back and play them again. So I think those are probably some of the best things you could do onto Morag if you want a potential deck list for something like that. When I play a Falcon deck, this is what I play. And this even probably needs some tweaking. I've just been running Maria Hill to test her out, but you're just running kind of a whole host of 1-drops, Collector and Bishop to benefit from card generation and bouncing these guys back to your hand. Miles Morales very often is going to be a 1 cost because of Nightcrawler and Iron Fist. And you bounce them all back, you buff them with Khazar. So this is something you could attempt to play on Morag, and I think it should do just fine for you. Whether this deck is strong enough as a whole for other, like if this wasn't the hot location, this has fallen off a bit, and there's probably some people who have made some updates to the list. I haven't really updated it besides testing out Maria Hill. But the power ceiling probably falls short of a lot of the popular decks at the moment. But I do think that this deck is competitive and somewhat consistent, so the power floor on this is pretty high as well. And like I said, it plays well into the location, so it's something I would keep in mind. You don't necessarily have to take this list, I just want to give you guys something to kind of jump off from. And honestly, you don't need Maria Hill, so there's no series 4 or 5 cards in this deck. You got a handful of pool 3s, but a lot of the 1-drops are rotatable. Collector, I think, is pool 2. So you have some options there. Really, Beast and Falcon are the wild cards there. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good deck to play into and play around Morag. As a whole, like I said, just either summon cards from other locations into Morag, or play enough cheap cards where you can kind of combo out a little bit, or just ignore it. That's an option as well. If you can win the other two lanes, but that's not always going to be super feasible. But yeah, that's going to be it for now, guys. Let me know down below in the comment section what decks you're playing with Morag, if there's any kind of synergies or things that I missed out on. But yeah, thank you all guys so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Jesus, what was that? Please consider subscribing, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.